talk about the pros and cons of piano and violin. So you might be thinking of playing one or the other or both. So with piano, you find that it's quite, I don't want to say simple, but when you first play, you can easily try a note or press a key on the piano and it'll instantly sound like what you're trying to play. So say you want to play C, it'll play C, D, and it's like you've got to try and use your ear training to check that it's going to sound the correct note. So if you don't have your fingers placed correctly on the fretboard, it will sound out of tune. Same as when you use your bow, you've got your fingers that are pressing down for the notes. We've got to make sure you've got the bow applying the correct amount of pressure onto the strings so that it makes a note that sounds pretty tuneful. So I'm recommenced playing at intermediate level at violin again. I last played when I was younger, up to grade 2. I didn't do any more exams after that, but I didn't find it that hard to learn because I think it helped that I'd already learned piano. So I wanted to add as well, it might help you first learn to use one instrument and then maybe try another instrument later. And I think it's best to maybe start with piano and then go into learning violin. But one thing I've noticed with both of these instruments, it's great to get your music theory discipline, because if you can learn to apply music theory to your pieces, you're going to find it easier to read the notes. You don't have to keep stopping and starting trying to work out how to play the correct note in the piece. So it helped, like I'm starting to get to a stage where I can quickly read music and I can go into, say, the local band, the student band, and I can quickly identify how to play that piece, so I can join in easily. Whereas before, it would have been like, I've just got to practice this and try and identify where to place my fingers on the frets. So that's great. With both, I think it's great with piano that you can play both the bass clef and the treble clef at the same time, and you can play different arrangements with each hand, and it kind of comes together and it sounds really tuneful. So that's something I like about the piano, and I think it's a great instrument. You can even apply say arrangements that were arranged for guitar and apply that to the piano, but then I could say the same, you can apply that to the violin. But the thing that's difficult with the violin, you are learning most of your notes on the treble clef, and if you want to play higher notes, you have to learn how to play in third position, second or third position. So it might mean moving your fingers even lower down the fingerboard, and that can not be easy to do at first, because it's like make sure you've got your fingers in the correct place. So I think it's worth it when you learn and when you get to that level. And I think what helps as well is getting finger stickers or tapes that you apply to the fingerboard, so you know exactly where to place your fingers. But you might get to a point where if you're good at playing music by ear, you can just listen out for the note, and then you'll know, oh, this is how it's meant to sound. This is how, say, you could use your piano and go, oh, well, this is how F sharp's meant to sound on the violin. I'm trying to think if there's any, I don't want to say there's any cons with any of the instruments, but with piano, it's a bit like violin. You have your grades, and it can go from grade 1 all the way through to grade 8. Same with violin, but I found with piano it's probably best not to skip the grades, whereas with violin I felt I could skip the grades, because when I first started learning, they said you've obviously able to demonstrate you can play at grade 1, so why not just enter you straight in for your grade 2 exam. So it might be that it might be quicker, say you've mastered one instrument, to skip a grade and then you can maybe go in a higher grade. You know, if you wanted to achieve, say, learning grade 5, in a smaller amount of time, you could easily look at, it really depends on how often you practice and how many hours a day you play. So it could be economically good to skip a grade and then go in at the next level. But I would suggest for piano, if you were looking at, like, say, being a piano teacher, maybe not skipping the grades, because I would love to eventually teach an instrument, but I feel like I'm a bit of a long way off. I mean, I've got the advantage, I'm helping with a local group, assisting with the violin, just showing them, you know, where to place the fingers on the fingerboard and that. And I'm only at a grade 3 level, and because it's like a certain type of organisation that you don't need necessarily a teaching qualification, that's great. But if you want to get like your pay positions, it's probably best to go through the formal exams. But I'd like to eventually be possibly a music theory teacher. So I'm looking into how I can achieve that, and I think I'm aiming for possibly maybe going in for my grade 5 or grade 6 piano. So in the future I might look at taking more exams, and I took the Associated Royal School, you know, the acronym, I'm trying to think what the acronym is, you know, the Royal College of Music exams, and I did that up to grade 3, but that was only when I was a child. But I'd like to maybe look at furthering that. But again, with both instruments, I think you need to also look at A, if you've got the financial resources, B, if you've got the time, because you've also got to think you need to have a bit of time to like practice, and also it can be quite hard if you've got like distractions like a job and other things like childcare, so you just have to look into that. I'm trying to think what are cons for each instrument. I think the main thing, I decided to go for learning the violin because it's quite a portable instrument, so you feel like you can just take it anywhere, and it's quite lightweight. And I actually got asked, when I was a child, do you want to learn piano or cello? And I thought I'll go for piano, because with cello I just couldn't imagine trying to carry that everywhere. And no disrespect, I know there's a lot of cello players, but it was just, I was thinking like, I've got to try and get this to a place, but to be fair, I did go on coaches, and there were cello players that managed to put the cellos in the hold, and it wasn't like hard in that sense. But then you could say the same with pianos. You can't really cart them around, but then you find that you can take easily a digital keyboard that sounds like a piano to venues, so it's worth it in that aspect. But if you really want to invest in, I mean, I'd love to have eventually a acoustic piano, so it's just like trying to find the resources and space, you know, to fit that in. But one thing I found, going back to violin, there's a choice, so it's a bit like pianos. You've got like your electric violins and your acoustic. I'm currently playing an electric violin, but I have it unplugged, so it sounds like an acoustic, and that really suits me, because I find I've got neighbours. You don't really want to be disturbing the neighbours with your playing, and it's usually quite silent when I play. And I find even when I've been helping with the band, it's a bit like lower sounding than it should be. But that's what's great. You could opt for an electric one, and then you could even plug it into an amp, and then you could have, like, say you wanted to perform at places, you've got like your electric violin. So yeah, that's one advantage. But I'm looking at eventually possibly getting an acoustic violin, because I just want like the proper like wooden, you know, so it just sounds like deeper sounding when I play. Also, I noticed I borrowed my tutor's bow, and it sounded so much better with that bow on my violin. So I think eventually I need to invest in a better bow. Because I didn't tell you the story, I originally tried to buy a bow, but I ended up with a viola bow, not a violin one. And I don't know whether maybe it was a violin bow, but it just didn't work with my violin. So I managed to sell that. So yes, both instruments are great. I'm trying to think. I found with violin, even though it can be easy to pick up, it's not necessarily easy to achieve a smooth sounding noise, because it can sound a bit scratchy, and it's all to do with the amount of rosin you apply to your bow. Also, even learning how to hold the bow, that can take a bit of a while, and I'm still learning to master that. Also, it's like how you hold your violin, so that's something to bear in mind. I would say if you look at both instruments, I'd find pianos maybe a good investment, as in you don't need to spend a lot at first when you're first learning to play. The only thing is I would suggest going for an 88 key keyboard or piano. Don't go for any lower, because when I was first learning to play, I went to a toy shop and got a kid's keyboard, thinking that I'd be able to practice on that, because it was demonstrated as like a versatile keyboard, but it didn't have 88 keys, so I'd get real frustrated when I was playing, because I was like, I can't play the higher octaves, I can't play the lower octaves. So if you're really serious about playing music, try and go for a longer keyboard, or something that A, is economically worthwhile, and also it's going to fit in your room. Because I didn't realise as well, keyboards they don't all have 88 keys, but it might be depending on what you want to use your keyboard for. You might be using it for performing at events, or you might only be using it to practice, like learning songs. So yeah, it's really worth looking into that. I say with both instruments, if you're really struggling to find sheet music, there's always your local library. You could go and borrow music books from there. They're really good. Also, I would definitely look at investing in, there's these online, I don't know the name of them, but you can get online piano and violin sites, and they offer like sheet music that you can subscribe to, so it's worth doing that. And I've even found, at the moment I'm going to a music school to learn violin, but there are loads of online resources, loads of YouTube tutors, so it's definitely worth looking into that. But yeah, I am really looking forward to a week next Saturday, because it's World Piano Day, so I might be popping in to watch some events. I might even have a go. They've got some free pianos local to me, so I might even get to play on a grand piano, so I'm really looking forward to that. And the best thing is, one of these events is free, but the other one is quite low cost anyway, and that's what's great about it, is that there's so many other people that play instruments, and it's just nice to like see other people playing. So yeah, that's all I'm going to say. Bye for now.